Hey guys, Jim Vanosky with Manufacturing Talks. This one's really cool. It was several years ago. I wrote for Forbes.com about a company called Augury, which was still kind of in startup mode back then. And they were doing some really cool stuff around machine health involving actually listening to machines and then using AI to process what was going on and be able to predict, potential breakdowns and life of the machine. They're still around. They've grown like mad. They're doing really cool stuff in the machine health space and in the AI space. And I've got Artem Kroupenev, their VP strategy, here today. He's going to tell us what they've been up to and all the cool stuff that they have going on. If you're in manufacturing, stay tuned because Artem has some really great stuff that you need to learn about.
Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vanosky. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Manufacturing Talks. I'm Jim Vanosky, your host. I'm really glad to be joined today by Artem Kroupenev. He is VP Strategy at a company called Augury. Welcome. How are you, Artem, sorry.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Really a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to this.
It's a pleasure to have you here, even though I did mispronounce your name there a second ago. It's been a long week
That's
already.
all good.
Actually, Augury and I go a good bit back. Artem and I were talking about it before we got on. I wrote in Forbes about the company several years ago, let's put it that way. And I think they've got some really cool stuff going on, and Artem has some great progress to share with us. But before we do that, why don't you just tell the audience about who you are and how you got doing what you're doing?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I've been in the technology industry and startups, software, AI for the last 15 years or so. I started by co-founding a couple of startups at early stages, and then I went on to also consult, essentially launching startups within large companies like Nike and GE.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a very important experience that then enabled me to go back and operate. And I've known the co-founders of Augury, Sar and Gal, for some time prior. And when I wanted to go kind of back to operate in a company and help build a startup again, Augury was the first company on my list. So, and that's how the connection was made. So that was almost 9 years ago. And I joined the company and was, really fortunate to be part of building out the product and the products that we have today. Some of the acquisitions that we made over time. I've experienced quite tremendous growth in the past few years. Really reaching and scaling, the initial products that we built to the industrial and manufacturing market. And it's been really an amazing experience, both for me personally in terms of learning the industry, learning, really deeply understanding our customers, and also bringing a number of very complex and cutting edge technologies into an industry that is not, very quick to change, right? And then driving quite a lot of change, quite a lot of adoption, utilizing artificial intelligence, IoT, a lot of knowledge with software, and really, when you see a factory where Augury's products and services today are deployed, it's a very different looking place than what I've experienced when I just joined the company 9 years ago. So that's been my path, and today I serve as a VP of strategy of Augury.
Well, and it's interesting. I was trying to think back. I'll have to look at the actual dates. I know you were Augury was one of the first two companies that I talked to that talked about bringing AI, which obviously now is all the rage, to the manufacturing world. And we'll dive into that a little more in a bit. But let's go back to basics. Tell me about, where did the idea for Augury come from, and then how have you built it from that idea?
Sure. Well, at the time, artificial intelligence was applied to kind of you can call consumer use cases, where there was search for data information, or it was things like speech recognition. And we're talking about 10, 11 years ago, right? And then Sar and Gal, Augury's co-founders, really came up with the idea of utilizing a similar approach that we use for speech recognition to the sound that industrial equipment makes, right? And they kind of and dove a bit deeper into the world of vibration analysis and utilizing a number of different signals that can come from machines in order to identify patterns, and based on those patterns, predict machine failures. So that was really the basic idea. Obviously, there's a lot of work that that gets done between the inception of the idea and then actually implementing
Yep.
it. And but it very quickly evolved into the application of AI to the world of predictive maintenance. And then really a short while after, as we were exploring the different types of customers, the different industries, different types of manufacturing, we understood that what we have is not just a slightly different approach to what predictive maintenance was, but really a true step change, a true revolution of what it can enable. We created a new category, which we called machine health, which today is one of the names for the application of AI to predictive maintenance.
Yep.
And we kind of grew to be a category leader in that space, and we have expanded from there. So we can talk about how we've expanded from there.
Okay.
But that's really the inception. That's where that came from.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the sound thing, because that's what really caught my attention years ago when I talked to Sar for the Forbes article I wrote, was that unique approach to actually listening to what machines were doing in the field. I've spent my entire career in manufacturing, and it was one of those moments where it's like, well, yeah, of course,
Mhm.
yeah, you can hear when the machine's going wrong. Now the human ear can't hear as well as what you guys have, obviously, and so I just thought it was such a an excellent example of that. It's obvious moment, when someone else
Yeah.
discovers, yeah, here's a great thing to do. Um, how does that approach give you guys an advantage over, there's obviously all kinds of predictive and preventive maintenance tools out there.
Yeah, well, we've seen over the last 10 years a number of other companies kind of go into that space, and seeing Augury's success, obviously. Um, there are competitors, and which are welcomed by us, which is great. That the industry
Yeah.
grows, and customers get a lot more benefit from more companies providing different types of services. But Augury has been leading that space for some time, and one of the advantages, obviously, of applying artificial intelligence to something like sound is the ability to, first of all, be a lot more accurate than a human can.
Yep.
And it took us a little while, but today we're at accuracy levels that are beyond human capacity, right? Of even a somebody who's trained in vibration analysis or analyzing the patterns of vibration for
Right.
machine maintenance applications. We can be more accurate with algorithms. And also, algorithms don't need to eat or sleep, and then they can look at hundreds of thousands of machines and signals at the same time. So the scalability this application is just tremendous, which means that we can take essentially like what would take an army of people and engineers looking at every piece of equipment, every component, day and night,
Mhm.
and provide that as a service,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yep.
the true advantage of what we have. And the other piece is that it takes time and effort and a lot of data to build, right? So not just domain expertise and know-how, but really a lot of data and a lot of time and fine-tuning to get the
Right.
models to the level of accuracy that we have today, and a lot of scale that we have today. So we have the largest library by far in the world of machine data for this type of application. And that has enabled us to provide guaranteed accuracy, which means that for monitoring the machine, we guarantee 99.9% accuracy in terms of our detection, prediction of what it is. And we can tell our customers exactly what's wrong. and how to fix that issue weeks in advance and sometimes months in advance, right?
Yeah.
And we guaranteed in essence that we have, the ability to say if a machine fails on Augury's watch, we can pay to repair or replace it,
Wow.
right? So that is not something which is possible, which was possible before, right? That's well beyond kind of human or traditional capacity.
Yeah, for sure.
And we believe that that's the way, kind of, that's just a foundation for what's to come next, right?
Yep.
So this is not just the solution, but rather it's kind of a foundational layer of how we believe manufacturing industry will behave in the future, where of course you have machines monitored with artificial intelligence. Of course you will, you should not be surprised by a machine failure in the future, right? That's kind of a baseline of how you run factories in the future.
Yeah. Again, going back to that, it's obvious moment
That's
of
right.
when someone else points it out to you, it's obvious, but you weren't going to get there yourself. So definitely an advantage you guys bring to the
Right.
table. The other one obviously is AI. So let's dive a little more into what part that plays in what you're offering.
So we have just one thing that's worth mentioning is that once we've established a good foothold in machine health, we've actually started expanding into additional areas of industry and manufacturing. And so machine health kind of addresses really the core need of the maintenance and the reliability person, right? Can I make sure that my machines don't fail? And if they're operating well, can I create additional capacity for my plant, right? If
Right.
your machines are, exactly what's happening, what will happen in terms of your equipment, you can actually produce more, right? Because your machines don't fail, you don't experience the same amount of downtime.
Yep.
But our customers have started to ask us for, well, can you then apply the same approach to our processes, right? So not just telling us when the machine and how the machines will fail, how to fix them, but can you tell us how to optimize, how to run our production better?
Interesting.
And so that is really the place we've ventured into. We made an acquisition in this space, and we've integrated that technology into what we do. We call that process health. And so process health is not just kind of machine health where you really find the failure. Process health is given your production process and what you want to produce and the quality you want to produce it at. How do you produce the perfect product every time, right?
Mhm.
And so we have essentially technology algorithms that can analyze the entire production process. Let's say you're making cookies, right, on a mass production scale. Well, how do you make sure that that cookie is exactly the same weight, the same color, the same taste every time? And that if you want to make more of those cookies, what are all the different, hundreds of settings and parameters from temperature to speed to load that you need to change across the whole process to make sure that you get that perfect cookie every time, and the amount of cookies that you want to produce, right? Without wasting any product or any issues or any energy.
Yep.
And so those algorithms can actually do that, right? And do that in almost a real-time manner, telling operators how to adjust the settings, the parameters to keep their production running at their optimum. And so we're now combining the world of equipment monitoring, machine health, with the world of process optimization. So now you can have an existing production line that you don't have to, create new production processes or introduce any new types of equipment or build a new factory. Take an existing production line, you dramatically reduce machine failures, and you know exactly how to run your processes better. You can get double-digit improvements from existing production processes. And that's a tremendous benefit because, and not just in terms of efficiency and bottom line and top line for the companies, it's also a serious environmental impact when you take it to scale. We
Yeah.
have thousands of factories, and if we can make those factories 10-20% more efficient without capital investment, that's a significant improvement, for the planet, right? Not just
Right.
for the production. So
Yeah,
I
it's
wanted
an
to mention
excellent
that.
point. Right. I've hit on that a number of times that really the best sustainability projects are the ones that pay for themselves.
Exactly. And what we experience right now with machine health and process health is an average around 4x ROI, right? Meaning that those projects pay for themselves usually within a few months.
That's amazing. I
And
know lots of people who would drool over that kind of ROI. Um,
so
Another
you,
thing as you were
yeah, go ahead.
talking that occurred to me is you're not overtly pushing lean, and yet it's really what you're about, right? Because lean at its core is waste elimination, and that's what you guys are doing with everything that you do.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I think the whole world of manufacturing engineering is about continuous improvement, is about
Mhm.
becoming leaner. But there's a very tangible limit to what you can do with traditional methods of improvement.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
year,
But
manufacturing
the ones
plants.
the ones who actually make them work, because a
Exactly
lot of them
right.
just fail.
A lot of them that fail, but even our world class manufacturers that we work with, take PepsiCo,
Yep.
Colgate, DuPont, they manage to squeeze out just a little bit of improvement maybe every year, and they do a lot of that work. We can 10x that type of improvement within the scope of the manufacturing process and the machines. And that's because the technology itself, or the application of artificial intelligence and what we've been able to build around it, really addresses some of the key tasks that were before just impossible to do. I
Yeah.
mentioned analyzing hundreds of thousands of machines at scale, or optimizing thousands of parameters in a production process at the same time. That's just not feasible before, right?
Right.
And so this is a huge boost to to those people who are in charge also of optimizing their production,
Yeah.
and also to the C-suite within, with leadership within manufacturing, because they have real challenges with workforce, with margins, with environmental impact, and
Mhm.
it's very difficult for them to create any significant change there, right? So there's a lot of pressure, but there's not a lot of tools available to change things significantly. We provide a part of that solution for sure, as well as on the workforce, kind of the people side, the new generation that is going to work, and are looking, they finished a college degree with engineering, or they're just looking for work within the technology space, the manufacturing space. um, that becomes a lot more attractive to them once they know that
Yeah.
the factory is powered by some of these technologies. There's a lot more they can do with it.
Yeah. You just hit on, I think, 3 huge points
Mhm.
that we make repeatedly here on the show. One is that most recent point you made about the workforce, and it's absolutely the case that to compete for the workers of the future, we have to get away from this notion that's out there that manufacturing is still this coal mine of
Mhm.
industry, dirty and dark and dangerous, and it's not. And folks like you are taking it high tech, and that's huge to be able to, number one, staff
Mhm.
with the folks who are coming from the new generations. But then number two, to substitute for the baby boom generation, because you're not going to have the numbers of people that we've had in the past. So it's about being efficient with our labor as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's some statistics that, first of all, labor, it's not just, scarce in terms of the skill sets, because there's so much being invested in manufacturing. But in
Mhm.
order to, what we call, reshore or bring a lot of manufacturing capacity back into the West, you're looking at a difference of maybe 4 times in terms of labor costs between a Western manufacturer and someone in the Far East, or
Mhm.
China, right? So an hour of a Western laborer, right, somebody who works or employee in a manufacturing plant, costs 4 times as much.
Yep.
And so if you want to bring back, or enhance these capabilities, really the only way you can do that is by making those production, facilities and the way we manage the operation a lot smarter,
Mhm.
right? A lot smarter, and making
Yep.
sure that we utilize the time and the know-how and the capabilities of the people that we have in manufacturing in a much more efficient way.
Yep.
And I'm not just talking about automation, right? I'm talking about real autonomy in terms of decision making, and
Right.
having the level of insight and collaboration that doesn't exist elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that, yeah, I think, that's a real promise for manufacturing. Real boom in manufacturing is is not just manufacturing in terms of, the capital invested into it, the number of factories built, but each one of those factories being tremendously smarter than anywhere else in the world.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, you similar to our earlier discussion about ROI, you have to make the labor costs pay for themselves as well, and that's how you do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the other thing going back that you hit on around AI is something that I stress is people in industry. You don't have to be experts on AI. Most people aren't even going to be able to tell you what AI is, and that's fine. What I've always pushed is two things. One is AI can look at, you know, many, many times more data points than any human in his entire life could ever do. And then number two, they can see patterns that we can't see. And
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
guys have examples of both of that.
We do. And, I kind of, think about AI like electricity, right? You don't need to be an electrical engineer to operate a light switch, right?
Right.
But somebody had to create and standardize a light bulb.
Yeah.
Um, you don't have to be an electrical engineer to use a computer, right? Or to use something that's uses transistors. But those things, those technologies, had to be invented and implemented, right?
Right.
And what with the way we approach building products and services that we provide our customers at Augury is that it's exactly that. We do not sell technology, right? Or even know-how around technology. We sell end-to-end products that are built to solve actual problems for our end users, right? The
Right.
function of maintenance and reliability, what is their biggest worry? Can we address it on a huge scale? And we're doing that, right? How do I prevent
Yep.
machine failures? The function of
Yeah.
process engineering, how do I make sure my production is constantly being optimized and I kind of get it better and better and better? That's the biggest worry of a process engineer. We're addressing that with a product, and we're packaging, and we're not the only company that's doing that, but I think we've been
Yep.
a pioneer of sorts in that space. We're actually packaging all the required components of technology, AI and hardware and sensing and connectivity into an annual subscription, right?
Mhm.
So it becomes simple to buy, it becomes simple to implement, and it solves a core problem for our customers. And yes, it is powered by a sophisticated combination of AI capabilities and algorithms
Mhm.
that either is able to analyze a lot more data than a person can do it much faster, right? Can do it with embedded expertise, has persistent memory, right? And essentially can remember things in a way that humans can't.
Yep.
And that is kind of the engine that drives it. But I think what's even more important is how do you package that technology, deliver it to the customer, and make sure that the customers adopt it, right?
Yep.
Use it as part of the natural work.
Right. So I found this really interesting. You guys had come back onto my radar like in the last 6 months for a couple different reasons.
Mm.
A couple months after that, one of my old buddies who I worked with at General Mills years and years ago, who I still stay in touch with to this day, he's retired, but we still trade emails routinely. And out of the blue, he sends me a note and he says, "Look, if you haven't been following these guys, you ought to be looking at Augury." So I worked with them before I retired, and now I'm watching what they're
Mhm.
doing, and they're doing amazing stuff. He said, back in the day when he was talking to you guys, he told you to focus on utilities for food plants.
Hmm.
So I promised him I'd ask if you if you did that. You talked about process optimization and machine health. Did you get into the machine health world in the utility side?
Well, we definitely have, and we kind of raised that, right? We took it and raised that. We started early on within the commercial utility space,
Yep.
stadiums and hospitals and things like that. The HVAC, heating, cooling
Oh, yeah.
equipment.
Mhm.
But then we quickly transitioned into manufacturing. Actually, food and beverage was one of the initial areas that we focused on. Today, we have, probably 6 out of the 10 largest food manufacturers in the world as customers, food and beverage. We're in hundreds of plants within companies like, anywhere from Colgate to PepsiCo and Frito-Lay that I mentioned.
Right.
um, Nestle and others. So food and beverage, is a pretty large sector within the general continuous manufacturing space.
Yep.
And we address the continuous manufacturing space very well, because there's a lot of rotating equipment, there are a lot of
Mhm.
continuous processes, there's a lot of data that kind of we can easily apply our solutions to. Um, we have today over 150 of the largest manufacturers in the world as customers, ranging from a few dozen plants to many hundreds of plants that we deployed, and the types of equipment and processes that we cover is both on the utility side, right, which is definitely a great application for what we have, but primarily we're on the actual we're within the yellow line, meaning on the actual production side, right?
Mhm.
So if you
Yep.
take let's take a food or beverage example. A beverage production line consists of anything from kind of taking the cans or the bottles, pushing them through, filling them, labeling them, packing them, and so forth. So all those critical pieces of equipment within that production line are covered by Augury, as well as the cooling equipment, the hydraulics, the even the generators sometimes that help generate some of the power. So a lot of the different equipment around, and so what emerges is a comprehensive picture of when and how a machine would fail.
Yep.
You can predict it, you understand it, as well as the process itself, right?
Yep.
How do we optimize it? So it was great advice for sure, right?
I'll tell him
And
you said that.
so we always appreciate great advice, and we focused on this area, but now we're in many other segments: building materials, chemicals, pharmaceuticals. We kind of say that we make everything from or not make, but we help companies make and keep the production lines running for everything from beer to pharmaceuticals to diapers, right? So you can have the full cycle of life in the coverage.
Well,
Um,
I've relied on the diapers long ago. I'm past that at this point. The beer though, that's still important to me. So keep rolling with that.
right. You're welcome.
What's the next big thing for Augury then? You look a few years down the road. What's the focus now?
So I think for us, we have a pretty clear vision for where this can go. Um, you know, there's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of buzz around application of AI, and we're fortunate to have been in the space for a while and have actually developed some of the foundational use cases for UI and manufacturing.
Yeah.
Obviously, predictive maintenance is one of them. Process optimization is another one. When looking beyond these established or use cases that are, to me, they seem established, but we're just scratching the surface in terms of,
Right.
how many customers are actually applying them.
Yep.
But, they're established in the sense that they work. We know how to do that. We know how to implement them, replicate them extremely well, provide them as a service, and so forth. So a customer no longer needs to develop those things by themselves
Mhm.
or tinker with them or create science, around those specific use cases. And so once we have these use cases established, what we're looking at is the convergence between them, which means that when you look at a factory or even a network of factories, the questions that executives are asking are not just when will this machine fail, right? Or can I improve my yield by 10%? They're asking,
Mhm.
where should I produce this product given these raw materials? Or if my demand ramps up, how quickly can I shift production, right? And why is this plant performing worse than that plant,
Mhm.
right? These are the kinds of strategic questions that they're asking that takes years to answer or even understand. The convergence between machine health and process health and some other AI-driven use cases actually can have the potential of providing an answer in real time, right? We can start understanding specifically how the way we maintain our machines affects the way we produce. if we need to produce a product at this plant, will that plant be able to handle it, the way we want to? And if we want to reduce our energy use or reduce our waste to meet our sustainability goals, what would need to be done across the way we design the plant, the way we engineer, the way we run it, the way we operate it, in order to be able to meet those goals? This is where the convergence or correlating between process health, machine health, AI-driven insights becomes so powerful, right?
For sure.
And so
Yeah.
this is really the area where we're getting into. That's an area we call production health. So not just the health of machines, processes, but also taking into account the way people work, and correlating between the way the machines are running, the way the processes are running, and your production goals.
Yeah.
That's a huge new area that we're kind of expanding into and exploring. And we have some really exciting results around that. We're able now to tell some of our customers that when you're running this product, this is exactly what happens.
Mhm.
And by the way, if you keep running this product, why don't you lubricate that machine in a different way? So kind of like a run flat, so you can run it for 2 more weeks until you can really perform the maintenance tasks without stopping
Mhm.
production.
Yep.
Uh,
Very
very
cool.
difficult, very difficult things to do without the kinds of insights that we have.
Yeah. But the kind of stuff we have to do to remain competitive, right?
Absolutely, yeah, and I think we take it from the user, not just from the technology. We're saying, hey, we've solved a huge problem for reliability and maintenance, solving a huge problem for process engineering. But then if you take a look at the traditional plant, the daily stand up, right, a meeting
Mhm.
that they have before a shift, who are
Yep.
the people who argue the most between themselves, right? Who are the people who do not communicate because they don't have the same insight, the same idea? And I think that's what we're solving for now, is bringing those people together, right? So they're becoming more of a team. And the
Yeah.
vision
Yep.
forward is very similar to what happened within software engineering. In the early 1990s and 80s, software engineer was very regimented and very kind of sequential in
Mhm.
the way of thinking. You had an expert who would build software, usually by themselves in a very small
Mhm.
team, and then would
Yep.
be in charge of a part of that software, and somebody else would be in charge of another part. But then software engineering evolved into these agile cross-functional teams, where people now are agile, not just in the way they build the product, but also in how they're building, what are they building together with the customers in iterations based on data, based on insights. And we're seeing manufacturing, kind of envision manufacturing moving in the same direction. You'll have tight cross-functional teams, people who are more generalists, who have access to these powerful insights and can make decisions that impact the whole operation, not just their little piece of the operation. I think that that was very empowering for
Yeah.
software development. Today, anyone can go and start learning how to code. I think
Yep.
that would be also very empowering for manufacturing.
I agree. Excellent. Well, we're about out of time. Is there anything we didn't touch on? Any closing thoughts you want to share with us, Artem?
Well, I really appreciate you having me here. After such a long break, or such a long time, to give you the update. Yeah, of course, a lot of your listeners probably have hopefully have an interest, right, and that haven't heard about Augury, then
Right.
please check us out, right? Augury.com. And that advice we got back in the day about going into a certain segment, going into food and beverage manufacturing, those conversations are incredible for us. So we're always open to speaking from with anybody from the industry, and having those conversations about where else would this be applicable, where else can we employ ourselves.
Great point. I will put your link in the description of the show so folks can go there if they're looking for it. It was really rewarding for me to have you on because I have to share, there have been a couple of companies I wrote about in the last 2, 3 weeks that I just read about going bankrupt. So, you're right about businesses. That's one of the hazards, but it's nice to have you guys also on my list where you're doing very well and doing good for people in my corner of the world in manufacturing. So thank you very much for what you do, Artem. Keep up the great work.
Thank you so much.
Yep. And of course, as always, thanks to you guys in the audience. That's why we're here. This one, I think, is incredibly valuable because, yeah, we talk to manufacturers, and this is a big deal, what Augury has going on. If you're not going to take it from me, take it from my buddy, Steve Allen. He was an expert. He still is from retirement. He sings these guys' praises. You should listen to him. So thanks again. We're here every Tuesday. So join us on the next one. So long.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Benoski. Watch for new episodes dropping every Tuesday. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.